Interrupt this program with a special bulletin from the John Doe Radio Show. JDR News Live.
The human brain is made for thinking, not human experiment. It's hardly a tinker toy or experimenting. Stop human with drugs.
Why do we talk about marijuana? It's the single biggest drug that is a source of some confusion.
This is really about educating the public about the fact that marijuana is a less harmful drug.
Marijuana, that's to get high.
You can be as high as you want.
The prohibition of marijuana over the last 71 years has not actually prevented you from using marijuana.
You feel
Close to winning the war on drugs.
I do believe there have been some successes.
We will never arrest our way out of this problem.
Welcome to the John Doe Radio Show, JDR News Live. The daily news from the John Doe Radio family. Make sure you check out all of our news that have been recorded to this date. You can go to John Doe Radio online. That's johndoerad.io. All you got to do, put that dot in between the I and the O, and we're right there for your listening pleasure, or whatever pleasure you would like us to be. I don't know what I'm talking about. Today on the show, we got a special show for you. Chris Jetter will be on with us in about 15 minutes. I'll give him a call. Chris Jetter. There's a lot of stories with Chris Jetter. Number one, he's a glass blower. He has run Bongathon for years and years and years. Many of you know. I'm sure are familiar with Bongathon. Also opened this club in Denver a while ago called the POTUS Club. Now, this club kind of pushed the boundaries of public usage and some other things that were going on inside the club. We'll sit down on the phone and talk with him about what's going on, because they got into a little bit of trouble, or at least the state is trying to put them in quite a bit of trouble. We'll talk to them about what happened, what the goings on with it. There is a trial coming this Monday for the POTUS Club with Norman Hartman and Chris Jetter. Not sure if it's exactly those two together in one. We'll get the story from him here in just a little bit. And also today, we have Illinois MMJ finally rolling out. Lots of people extremely happy about that situation because it's taken forever for that to be rolled out. Opponents to the Ohio legalization measure, news on that, say they won't hire stoners. So we'll read that news story about it. Of course, if you've read the Ohio initiative before, question 3, if you know anything about it, it does allow medical marijuana users to be addressed the same as someone who has a prescription. Say you have an antidepressant, or if you have anti-anxiety, or if you're on painkillers. The same rules would apply for medical marijuana as it would for those prescriptions. So one of the first states, if not the first that I can think of in the entire nation, that has actually put that type of situation forward and where it could possibly protect medical marijuana users. So we'll get into that story. Also, Colorado and banking, one that I was trying to get to earlier in this week. The Fed's basically putting the kibosh, no more. Or it's not going to happen with banking. So eventually it should. Eventually we should be able to figure this whole thing out, have dispensaries, other stores that are involved with cannabis, also be able to bank and not just deal with cash, because that's kind of an extremely dangerous situation, especially for cannabis businesses to be involved in, is just a straight cash type situation. In fact, I heard a story of a couple years ago where a dispensary had owed in fees and all this other stuff $40,000, and the way that they brought that money to the Department of Revenue and the Marijuana Enforcement Division was they brought it all in $40,000 in cash and plopped it down right there on the med front desk and said, "Here you go, bitches. There's my money. Bitch better have my..." All right, that's enough of that. Anyway, extremely difficult situation for a lot of dispensaries to have to deal with, so we'll get into that. Also, what else do I have for today? And if we get to it, which I'll probably roll into this after we talk to Jetter, the hemp car that I was talking about earlier this week, also, this car that I got to see when we went down to go do the show at Green Labs one day, there was this nice red car sitting outside. Nobody even really wanted to park next to this thing. There was like a little spot right behind this car, and it was just enough to where you would be able to maybe parallel park in this mamma jamma. The thing remained open the whole entire day. Nobody wanted to risk hitting this car, and who knows if it would have done even any damage to this car, as you'll see in this news story that we have in just a little bit. The dude starts banging his hand and a hammer on top of the car, showing you just how well built it is. Which, if I'm not mistaken, stories from Henry Ford when he had built the hemp car way back when, the dude had taken a sledgehammer to the hemp car himself there. So we have hempcrete, you have houses being built out of hempcrete, and in fact, I saw this story last year online. I think you might have seen the video if you pay attention to hemp at all. There was a hempcrete block that they set down on some concrete. They go get a blowtorch, fire that mamma jamma up, and just put it right against the hempcrete. And it's not catching fire. And it didn't catch fire. It just sat there and turned black, maybe a little bit of red embers around where the actual flame was hitting the hempcrete, but not at one point did it flame up. And when you remove the torch from the hempcrete, it just stayed black. Didn't continue to burn. None of that mamma jamma stuff. So hopefully at some point in time here, more of the country, more of the world can see how hemp can improve textiles and all this other great stuff over time, and how important it is possibly for some companies to be able to switch over to hemp type products and stay in business. You know, oil is basically put in everything that's made. It's really hard to find things that don't have some sort of oil. I guess it's not too hard to find things that don't have some sort of oil or petroleum byproduct in them. But it's in a lot of things that you use every day, a lot of things that are just in this world, period. That's how they got there, hemp or petroleum products. And it would be nice to see what type of situation we could have with hemp competing against that. And it's not just the stoners that are talking about that. Stats, figures, examples of how well hemp can do in so many different situations. It's like preaching to the choir right now. I know I'm preaching to the choir. But this is not just a stoner legalized weed type situation that we face when it comes down to hemp. Just so many examples of how it's misunderstood with our government, how it got lassoed in with marijuana, how it's ridiculous that even here in Colorado there are hemp crops that are having to be trashed, or they're having to make some sort of plans with it because it tested just above the 0.3% THC content that is allowed federally. You can have products that are below 0.3% CBD, THC, all that stuff that is attached to the cannabis plant, but you go 0.4%, and that now becomes illegal, and you can be charged with anything that the cannabis laws that are ruled with you at this point in time, whatever state you're in, wherever you're at, those rules can apply for your hemp product. So another thing that we need to move forward with here in the United States, hopefully that's something that'll come quickly. That's probably the next big boom that we see with this whole industry. I don't think a lot of people even have thought about that. Okay, we see the cannabis rush here in Colorado and other states, how popular it's got, how much money's being made. Colorado voters in November going to the ballot, being asked if they should be refunded a large sum of taxes that were brought in for cannabis, because when we put it on the ballot for legalization, the numbers that they gave, we raised a hell of a lot more than what they said that we were going to be able to do. So under Tabor, the Taxpayer Bill of Rights here in Colorado, the states generally would have to refund that to the people. They could have made the decision themselves to just say, okay, we're going to give this money back to the people. But instead they decided, we want to keep this. And the only way that they're able to keep that here in Colorado is if they take it to a vote. If the people of Colorado say, yes, you can keep that money would go towards cannabis, anti-cannabis education. They say it's overall just cannabis education, but we know it's anti-cannabis education, stupid rat cages, stupid billboards, things that don't work. And we know that they don't work through studies and through the history of the drug war. My vote is no. You can't have that money, number one, because you haven't showed currently to this point that you were able to spend the money that we have already given you properly. Every day this week, I think we've talked about how the Marijuana Enforcement Division misused and misappropriated funds when all this started. When legalization started, all these dispensaries, all these companies started pushing forward and paying their fees. The brand new SUVs, the nice office chairs, the big-ass desks, the fantastic office they were using. Those things make me say, no, you can't have this cash until you show us that you're willing to do something positive and something constructive with it. Which, to ask a government if they're able to do that or to just plain flat out do that on their own is asking quite a bit. It's asking the world, the sun, the moon, the stars, all that good stuff. Anyway, that's my whole spiel there about hemp and the keeping of cannabis tax funds here in Colorado. I have a friendly bet with a few people that say that the people of the state of Colorado are going to say the state can keep that money. The thing is, a few of these people haven't necessarily been in Colorado their entire life, so they don't know how get your hands off my land, get your hands off my water, get your hands off my whiskey, get your hands off my weed, get your hands off my minerals, which is basically how we deal with it here in Colorado. Those are our mottos. Used to be keep your hands off my water, land, and whiskey. Now it's cannabis. I added in there also. And I still don't think the people of Colorado are going to allow the state to keep pushing forward with anti-cannabis messages. For instance, there's a billboard that just went up. We talked about this earlier too. I think it was on Tuesday. A billboard that went up from Smart Colorado, which is parents and people that are just crazy anti-weed, think it's the same as alcohol, think that it's the same as heroin, think that it's the same as meth, put up a sign asking parents, is pot a hard drug? Which is a ridiculously stupid question because no, it's not a hard drug. You can't even prove that it's physically addictive, much less even be close to methamphetamine or be close to heroin. So a sign went right up behind that from the Marijuana Policy Project that said, why don't we talk about toxicity with pot compared to alcohol? And really get a conversation with our children here in Colorado. I feel sorry for people that are still in Mississippi or Oklahoma, which is the whipping boy for us here on the John Doe Radio Show, because as much as I don't like Utah, and as much as many people that I know that have been busted in Utah traveling from California to Colorado or California to Las Vegas, whatever it is, still Oklahoma is the most farked foobar place that I can think of to get busted with cannabis. You don't want to do it there. So, big shout out to our sponsors that make the John Doe Radio Show possible. Holler at USA Cannabis Company. Understanding the rapidly changing cannabis regulation through the United States is crucial to cannabis business longevity, from consulting to commercial construction. By the way, you can go to usacannabisconsulting.com, usacannabisconsulting.com. If you need commercial construction, product, brand licensing, USA Cannabis Company is 100% vertically integrated and is the only cannabis one-stop shop in the country. Commercial cannabis business one-stop shop. Many people trying to enter the cannabis business don't know the market and can't tell you what they want. There, however, is one common theme. They want to make money. USA Cannabis Company is a licensed general contractor that specializes in most marijuana-approved states across the nation. USA Cannabis Company has a portfolio of cultivation facilities, extraction labs, commercial kitchens, retail dispensary storefronts, and is building one of the largest marijuana greenhouse dispensaries in the state of Colorado. With over 70 years of construction experience, USACannabisConsulting.com is your go-to to get the job done right the first time. USACannabisConsulting.com today. Head to them, tell them the John Doe Radio Show sent you for a nice quote and a discount. Our good friend Kyle Allen will help you out over there. USACannabisConsulting.com. They've also got examples of projects they've completed, how to get your project started today. Also, big shout out to Mogul Printing, just at Mogul Printing online. Pull them up. They can get anything printed up for you, whether you want to have some shoes, socks, underwear, pants, jacket, whatever it is, they can get the image on it. They can also help you design that image. And big thanks to yourgraphics.com, URGRAFIX.com, for taking care of our website, the brand new design at johndoerad.io. John Doe Radio, put a dot in between after the D, before the I, and there you go. Weedbiz.net, shout out to them for hosting the John Doe Radio Show. You're listening to us because of Weedbiz.net, if you're not listening to us live. And as always, you can listen to us on live Monday through Friday, starting at 6 p.m. YouTube.com/John Doe Radio. YouTube.com/John Doe Radio. It'll take you right to our page. You can see any of the live shows that we've done on YouTube there, or just head to johndoerad.io and download the shows. There, you can subscribe. There's an RSS feed. There's also an iTunes feed that you can subscribe to also, if that's sort of your thing. Mobile friendly and all that mamma jamma shiz. All right. Let's get Chris Jetter here on the phone and find out what's going on. Ring-a-ding-ding-a-ling. Brand new phone system here in the JDR. It's fancy and shiz.
Hello.
Howdy, Chris. It's Tim from John Doe Radio. How you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you, Tim?
Good. Fantastic. Hey, we wanted to give you a call because obviously today we saw online that you have a big date on Monday coming up. What I kind of want to explain is what's going on, because I kind of feel like I know what's going on. I know a lot of our listeners don't have a clue what's going on, what this could mean for you personally, for your crew, and what it could possibly mean for the state of Colorado going down here. So we're talking with Chris Jetter, who is part of Blue Mountain States, correct?
Yeah, I'm part of Blue Mountains, which is a collective.
Yep.
And basically what we did is we partnered up with Ed Kaus, who owns a company called MJ Proper, and it's a collective as well. Both of these collectives basically formed once the governor had signed the bill, once legalization had passed, prior to 1317 being initiated. What we've done is basically in the state of Colorado, Amendment 64 allows for assistance for recreational cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
And I break it down kind of like this. Like, I can assist anybody grow their cannabis plants for them. So let's say, for example, I'm assisting you, Tim. I can grow your 6 plants of cannabis for you. Okay.
Yeah.
In the process, I'm going to have some expenses involved as far as lights and nutrients and some water, lease, packaging, etc. So those things can be reimbursed, but they cannot be remunerated.
Yeah.
Meaning you can't make a paycheck on it.
Yeah, and that's kind of a funny word for a lot of people is remuneration, which basically
the remuneration is really the key word, and the thing is it's open to interpretation, and it's like this, and I'll kind of break it down in another fashion. If let's say you and I were going to let's say I was coming over to your spot over to the radio show. We're going to do an interview, right?
Yeah.
And you call me and you say, "Yo, you're on the way. Will you stop and get me a 6-pack of beer?" And I say, "Sure, Tim, no problem. I'll grab you a 6-pack of beer."
Hopefully, that wouldn't be asking
now,
you
let's
that. but go ahead. No, that's neither here nor there.
Let's say the beer costs $5.50, okay, and I get to your spot, and you hand me a $10 bill, okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, "Here, bro. Here's $10. Thanks for bringing me the beer." Okay.
No.
Was I just reimbursed or remunerated for the sale of that beer?
I mean, technically, yes.
Was I required to hold a liquor license to give you that beer?
No, you were not required to hold a liquor license to sell that beer. But that's kind of where the difference is.
Would I have to?
Is that there's not that. Now, that's
Okay.
arguing
and
that...
I wouldn't be charging you tax on that beer as well, right?
No, you probably wouldn't be charged. I mean,
No.
not you as a person charging tax as a store would. I mean, you've possibly taxed it
Right.
by, having money for the beer and then giving yourself kind of remuneration. I mean, that's not really taxing, but I mean, you're kind of gaining money off of that, which is legal when it comes to beer and that type of exchange. But the problem is we're not quite there yet with cannabis. Now, let's kind of rewind a little bit, because I want to give the people the story of what's going on with POTUS Club, because what we're talking about fits right in there with exactly what we're talking about. You guys opened a club here in Denver. It was the POTUS Club, people of the United States, and people could go there. And it kind of stinks because, number one, Denver is not too friendly with cannabis clubs and public usage of smoking. And but you guys had opened that, helped push that fight forward, because that does need to be happening.
And this is the thing. Yeah, when we opened that club on February, it was basically the 26th of February when we initially opened the club. We had looked at this thing for well over a year as far as how to put together a private club in the state of Colorado in which you could consume cannabis. Ed Kaus, my partner, actually caught a case for the same scenario last year in the city of Denver. Okay. Through the process of his case last year, he had his charges dropped by the district attorney, quote unquote, in the interest of justice. In that decision, the judge cited some case law as far as how you operate a private club in the state of Colorado legally. Okay? Ed had contacted me early this year, and said, hey, look, I think I found a place, for the club. I've got the case law from the judge of how to open a club by law. Okay. We already knew that we had to have the assembly piece with the code correct. We had to have the zoning correct. In other words, you can't just open, an assembly club anywhere.
Yeah.
That's why we chose this location, because it was a former swingers club. It already had all those pieces in place.
A former swingers club. Man, I've never been to one of those.
Yeah,
This seems like it would be an exciting spot to be.
Yeah, it used to be called the Sugar Shack.
The
Okay,
Sugar Shack.
so it had already dealt with a lot of controversy within this location in and of itself.
That's awesome.
So the thing is look, when we opened the club at the end of February, okay, we sent out 4 certified registered letters, one to the prosecuting attorney, one to the judge, one to the city attorney, and one to the assistant city attorney, okay? And we notified them who we were, the case law that we had thrown out last year, what our intent was, and where we had planned on doing it. Okay. On March 11th, we were at the club. It was a normal day like any other day. We were doing reimbursement out of the bar for our members. And I was literally standing behind the bar. We had like 6 or 7 people sitting in the bar. And a knock came at the door. It wasn't a hard knock or anything. Ed was working the door. That's my partner. He's, in his 60s.
Yeah.
And literally the door opened, and as it was a locked door, you couldn't just walk into the POTUS Club. You could not walk in off the street. You had to have access into the club, and that would be us opening the door for you and then taking your ID at the door, making sure you were a member, and if you weren't, you would have had to gone through the member process. Okay? So we're very meticulous about all of these pieces as far as what we had to do within the law.
Yeah, and I fully believe 100% that you should be able to do that specifically, even without any legislation here in Colorado going forward or in Denver. I really, truly feel that if it's a private event behind a locked door, people are getting in, you may be even charging a fee to get in, which through history and in multiple states, that counts as possibly having a private club. Like in Arkansas, I think in some areas, especially where my grandma is and owned a country nightclub for years and years, that's the only way you could really have a bar, is it had to be kind of a private type situation. So I fully agree with what you're doing there.
Well, and the thing is in the state of Colorado, if you have a private membership club, you can have alcohol in it at any given time by anybody that's there over 21. So if we're regulating like alcohol, if you can do it in a private club for alcohol, then you should have the same rights cannabis in a private club.
And there are some stipulations there also to not being able to technically sell. Technically having to have a liquor's license, even if it is a private club. I'm pretty positive it's still
not in the state of Colorado. The state of Colorado, anybody can possess alcohol within the club and you can consume it. Okay,
but it's
after you've been a club membership for 3 years in the state of Colorado, you can apply for a liquor license.
Okay,
and then sell alcohol from your establishment.
Yeah, and that's the difference.
Those things are defined, and we were aware of those things. Okay. Now, in the state of Colorado, the legislators, when they wrote 1317 to regulate recreational cannabis, adopted nearly entirely 1284, which is the code to regulate medical marijuana. Legislators are lazy, that's fine. They could have then adopted that legislation and then moved towards the things like alcohol. For example, public consumption. Everybody's always up in arms about the public consumption. Well, you're not allowed to consume alcohol in public. You can't walk down the street with a beer in your hand. Okay, that's illegal. Okay, you can consume 3-2 beer in a park, for example. That's legal.
Yeah.
Okay, you can walk into a privately owned bar and consume alcohol. And that's legal. So the things are, if you want to look at this from a scenario, if we want to look at it from the other side, being alcohol, what violations do you end up for in a criminal court in the state of Colorado regarding alcohol?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure though.
Let me run you through that.
Go ahead.
You can get a DUI, right? You can be in criminal court for a DUI, correct?
Yes.
You can be in criminal court for public intoxication.
True.
Okay. You can be in criminal court for contributing to a minor.
Gotcha.
Do you know of any possession charges within alcohol?
Minor in possession. I mean, that might be the only thing I could think of.
Minor
it's probably the only rule that there is.
And that's the thing. So if we're going to be regulating like alcohol, and there are only a limited instances that you can find yourself in a criminal court in the state of Colorado for alcohol, then the same should hold true for cannabis.
Yeah.
And so the things that we're talking about here, me showing up to this facility and bringing in an ounce of weed for you, Tim, which is legal in the state of Colorado, and you can reimburse me for the costs that I have into that ounce of weed, which, again, is protected under Amendment 64, the constitutional law. Well, I'm sorry, Tim, but you can't pay me in seashells.
No, I understand that. But see, that's where there's kind of this blurry line here in Colorado is the free exchange of cannabis. Now, you've got a point there that I don't think I've heard argued out in court before, at least I'm not aware of it, is that if you go buy recreational cannabis for somebody, bring it back to a spot, that person gives you the exact cost of what the cannabis costs. I mean, that now that you mention it, that does seem like it's a possible argument here, but the thing is, specific sales, that's just not allowed from right now at this point in time.
That's the thing. Everybody's getting hung up on the sale. Okay, it's not a sale. And let me give you an example, Tim. I'm an owner. I'm a badge license holder in the state of Colorado. Okay, I opened up my dispensary in 2009. Okay, I sent the state, the federal government, etc., a lot of tax money for sales of cannabis in the state of Colorado. Okay. It's not lost on me what the difference between a sale and a reimbursement is.
Yeah.
Okay. And if I'm giving you assistance in the state of Colorado and you're reimbursing me for the costs that I have on the cannabis, it's a reimbursement. It is not a tax sale.
But would they argue that if somebody is not specifically, we haven't made a prearranged agreement, which I don't know, maybe that's the agreement is that you become a member of the club and then you're taking care of.
Well, that is the agreement because there was a membership agreement. In fact, people hated filling out our membership form because it was very tedious. And it had an echo sign. It actually went back through email. You had to confirm it, etc. And so the officers that came in on March 11th, that conducted their underground sting, of the POTUS Club on the sales of marijuana, quote unquote, they filled out our forms. Okay. Mm-hmm. They signed their forms. They echo-signed them. They dotted every I and crossed every T, and we made sure of it. Now, my position is in the state of Colorado, if you're 21 and up, I don't care if you're a police officer, you're a fireman, you're a printer, if you want cannabis and you need reimbursement, I can help you.
Okay.
So the fact that they did fill out the forms, is part of the case. That's part of the discovery that they brought to the table, that we had, oh my God, these membership forms and da-da-da-da. Well, yeah, absolutely. You became a member, you asked us for assistance, and we provided you with that assistance, and you reimbursed us for the cannabis. Yes, there was no sales tax on it. It wasn't a tax sale. It was a reimbursement.
Okay. Now, I do understand that. Now that you pitch that side of it, I understand it. And I'm not saying that shouldn't be the way that it is, but is that how the courts would interpret things? Now, come Monday, your trial starts.
And it doesn't matter what the courts think of it, Tim. It comes down to the jury. Okay, and let's be honest.
Exactly, and that's what I was including.
The jury is a pool of Denverites that have probably voted on this issue. I mean, everybody knows that we legalized cannabis and we legalized it to be regulated like alcohol. Okay. Now, when we did that, Tim, it wasn't like the legislators just woke up one morning and said, hey, let's legalize weed in Colorado. We'll make a bunch of money off of it. No, we had to draft the constitutional amendment. We had to put it on the ballot, and then we had to pass it. Okay. So basically the people of Colorado said, hey, we want you to regulate cannabis like alcohol in the state of Colorado. They, in turn, took 1284 and regulated it like medical marijuana. I mean, you could take the 3 sets of regulations, put them in a transcript, put them on a table, all 3 documents, and give me an intern that can read and decide which ones are the 2 most alike, and it's clear. Like, I doubt you will even find one paragraph between cannabis regulations in the state of Colorado and alcohol regulations in the state of Colorado that match. So if we're regulating like alcohol, I think it's got to be at least close. And it's not. They have regulated like medical marijuana. So
and it's not. It's definitely not regulated like alcohol.
I mean, issue at hand. And yes, look, when we opened this club, were we aware of the situation? Were we cognizant of it? Yes. We didn't go into it blindly and say, fuck the man. We're just going to open up this and thumb it in their face. The fact is that we have done each piece of this opening of this club acutely to the letter of the law. And, we're willing to show that to a jury in a court of law because, I'm willing to stand up for my rights. Ed's willing to stand up for his rights. And we have other individuals, that are willing to testify and stand up for their rights as well. So, I think it's a fundamental issue that, yeah, you can look at the legislators and say, well, are we doing it right? But they're legislating something they have no understanding. And it wasn't by their direction that this legislation had been done. This legislation had been done under the people's direction. So it's really our choice as far as how we want to interpret it and how we want to move forward with it. There are a lot of people in the industry, especially, pundits that are like, oh my God, why would you do that? Why would you, for me personally, why would you have an owner's badge and then go out and try to, go against the grain in a system in Colorado by opening a club? Well, the reason that I've done that is because I've read the laws. I've, understood the laws. I've been involved here, in Aurora my entire life. And I've been involved in the weed industry since 2009 when I opened up a dispensary. I'm acutely aware of the changes that have come about in the law. And I'm willing to take those laws, now that they're on my side, and stand up for my rights in a court. And I think for most people, they don't want to do that. And who can blame them? I mean, who wants to go to court tomorrow?
Yeah, and it's definitely, it's a situation to where you're fighting for what you believe that the law should be, fighting to, possibly set precedent, all this other stuff. Bottom line is, though, is the majority of the public, I think, just the problem is that you're going to run head on into people that don't see exactly how you just explained it to me. Because I, as a cannabis user, as someone who feels that there should be limited regulations on this, I can understand. But also at the same time, I see the other side of the table and where they're interpreting the law, where sales come into play, an illegal club, illegal sales. I can understand that. I can understand that side, but now that you've kind of explained it, I agree with what you're trying to fight and what you're trying to do. I'm just not sure.
And I agree with those things too, Tim. Like, but my point is like, if we are regulating like alcohol, then the state of Colorado should have already legislated cannabis bar licenses. Yeah. And if they want tax money out of those cannabis bars, then they should have already be legislating cannabis bars and the cannabis bar money that goes with it. Okay. Yeah. Instead, they are collecting $50 million in taxes on our backs, the gift we gave them, and they are giving us absolutely no respect in the process. Okay? They're telling you, dirty, hippie, smelly, stinky hippie, stay at home, smoke your weed there. We don't want to see it. We don't want to smell it. We'll take the $50 million, thank you, and we'll go spend it on rat cages.
And that's true. That's because that's what I talked about that earlier in the show too, of the wasted money. And I think it's BB that's coming up on the ballot here in November that asks Colorado if they want their money back for the excess taxes that we're in. You know, people say no to those cages, no to these stupid billboards that are going up. Hopefully, we'll get that money refunded. But so okay, and I
agree with you. The tax is too high. They've given us no respect in the process. They stiff-arm you all the way to the bank, and then they tell you you can't even go out in the public. We're going to have all of these tourists. Oh, and by the way, Tim, it's not affecting tourism either. You got all these tourists coming to this state, that have spent $50 million just in tax money, okay, that the state's collected, and you're not going to give them one location to consume it. You're going to tell them they can't do it in the park, they can't do it in their hotels, you can't do it in your car, you can't drive, you can do it nowhere. But thanks for the $50 million.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100% that when you sit down and you think about it, you go to a bar, you're able to buy a beer, you're able to buy a shot. I fully believe that it should be the same thing with these clubs, but once again, it's frustrating that we're not quite there yet. So I hope that your case can push that forward.
This is the thing. If it was alcohol, I could be able to apply for a distribution license. I should be able to apply for a retail license. I should be able to apply for a special events license so I can hold events down in Civic Center Park. Okay? Those are all licenses offered under alcohol. It's my humble opinion, Tim, and mine alone, that I should be able to go into Chili's, sit down, have myself a nice burger, and drink a Dixie's Elixir's recreated drink with my dinner.
Yeah, I agree
They've got their cannabis license right on the wall, right next to their alcohol license. Now, that's regulating like alcohol in the state of Colorado.
True. Yes, 100% is, but what
the legislators are doing now is some perverted fucking nightmare of what they think it should be.
And it's going to take people like you, your trial on Monday, hopefully a good outcome with that, kind of explain how people can help you out. We have a good number of listeners from the Colorado area, and I'm sure they'll be downloading this podcast. Most of our downloads are coming from our actual website now, not the live stream. So I'm sure over the next couple of days we might get some questions of how people can help you. So you have a trial coming up on Monday.
Yeah, basically what we're going to have is we're going to have a series of 3 trials coming up. The first trial Monday is for Ed Kaus. He was the one that I partnered up with that actually had the lease on the club. Yeah. His charges Monday are running a marijuana business without a license and a violation of the Clean Indoor Air Act.
Which is public smoking. You're not allowed to smoke in Colorado indoors, period, whatsoever.
Correct, and they did amend it to include cannabis about 2 years ago.
Unfortunately.
And so this is a private location. This is a private spot, so there is a clause in private clubs that you can have smoking within the club. Essentially it's like sitting in your living room.
Yeah, and
so as far as that goes,
cigarette bars are.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about it.
Yeah, well, cigarette bars, and that's the side that I think is going to get worked out here quickly when it comes to Denver and the state of Colorado. I think that they are eventually, soon, hopefully, going to allow those clubs to operate and allow that situation. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be included indoors, but maybe a situation to where it's out back, out of the view of public, something like that. That's still pushing it. Still pushing it as far as we deserve more. Not us pushing the boundaries, but hopefully that'll get fought out. Now, the big thing is the illegal sales and operating a cannabis club. What kind of punishment can you get for that?
That's what I was getting to next. Basically, the next two cases are for distribution of cannabis. Okay, you got to understand, they came in on March 11th, raided the place. They didn't even have a search warrant on that day. And basically, when it was all said and done, after they'd taken all the cannabis out of the club and left, the recourse of the day was writing Ed Kaus a violation of the Clean Indoor Air Act, and then handing me a distribution ticket, misdemeanor, on a gold stationery for 6 grams of cannabis and leaving.
Misdemeanor?
Okay?
Wow.
As soon as they were gone, we reopened the club. Okay, we reopened it immediately on social media, told everybody come down, we're open, don't worry about it, we're good to go. Okay? Now, 1 month later on, guess what weekend?
It was the 420 weekend.
420 on 4/18 at 3:15 in the afternoon. They come rolling in like the Gestapo, and they come in 12 deep with a search warrant. Okay, we have 150 people in the club. They drag basically me, Norm, Brooke, Matt Pinchkowski, and a few others out onto the sidewalk in handcuffs. Okay, make a big display outside. They confiscate all the cannabis, and then they take us down, quote unquote, downtown for questioning. Okay. They basically put us in a retaining room for about 2.5, almost 3 hours. I was never levied one question towards me. Really? And then when I was released, I was handed the same exact gold citation that I had received on March 11th.
So these citations,
misdemeanor distribution.
That's big. I didn't know that it was a misdemeanor charge. I thought these were felony, harsh, prison time is going to be given type charges. No. Okay, that's good to know. That's fantastic.
And you got to understand, the 2 misdemeanor distribution charges combined are for a total of 12 grams of cannabis, less than half of the legal limit in the state of Colorado.
Yeah. Well, trust me, I know. I sold 2 quarters to someone and ended up with
it's not like we were bouncing pounds out of state in this club and like we were some big underground organization. Yeah. No, we put POTUS logos on the doors. We put POTUS logos on the windows. We told people we were a private club. If you wanted to become a member, you could. If you need assistance, we would provide it. That's what it boils down to.
I guess that kind of changes the whole, because the way that I see what you're doing right now, and correct me if this is the wrong way to describe it, but 100% civil disobedience. I mean, how you feel that the
100% civil disobedience. In fact, when we opened the club, we talked about, are the cops going to come in and shut it down? And the answer was yes, they probably are. And what are we going to do once they shut the club down? Well, we're going to reopen it. And we did. On March 11th, after the cops were there, we reopened it instantly. Okay?
Yeah.
When the cops came through on 4/18, what did we redo? We reopened the club. They took all the cannabis. They confiscated everything. We reopened it on 4/19. We operated 4/20 throughout the rest of the weekend. Okay?
Yeah.
The one thing that they did that we didn't expect them to do is we expected to get a cease and desist.
A cease and desist?
The city of Denver.
Okay.
Yeah. Instead, what we got is nuisance civil asset forfeiture abatement. So they threatened the landlord, just like they did with Ruga over at Grassroots,
yep,
to take the property unless the landlord evicted MJ Proper in Blue Mountains.
Yep. And those are, see, that when you mention that, that's another important part of this whole civil disobedience and straightening out these laws, because I talked about this to extent yesterday with Freeway Rick Ross, not the rapper Rick Ross, but Rick Ross, who was involved, in crack dealing and the Contra situation and the presidential, everything. That basically he got $100,000 taken from him for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Civil asset forfeiture. Now, when it comes to the drug war, this is something that's misused consistently over and over again, and obviously they felt that they could do that with you, in my opinion, here in Colorado, along with what I thought would be possible felony charges, and then taking something away from you. I feel like we're well beyond that, the will of the people with voting legalization into place, that would be a directive for them to back the fark off. But they're cops, so why would they do that?
And not only that, but they basically put it under a civil court. So they put it in civil court under asset forfeiture, and then they claim narcotics violations. Okay? Well, cannabis is legal in the state of Colorado, so why is it still being lumped in with illegal narcotics?
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I agree with you. I mean, that's just absolutely ridiculous. Now...
And the thing is the civil piece went through, and we weren't even allowed to testify on it. They read what the police had put on the report, and that was the end of it. We weren't even allowed to bring any witnesses in, etc.
Jeez.
And so that basically, the judge ruled on that instantly, and basically evicted us through the asset forfeiture piece.
And that's precedent from the drug war.
We didn't even get a voice.
I mean, that's just the way that the drug war has worked, and they've set precedent for so many cases that they didn't even have to. They didn't give a shit about you one bit. They already knew what they could do.
No, not at all.
Which in Colorado is absolutely
ridiculous.
So
this is the thing. What we need people that are former members, were members, that came to the club, that enjoyed the club, that participated, that have time on 8 a.m. on Monday morning to come down and testify to do exactly that. We need to put you on the witness list and just come down and just basically explain to people that you are a member of the club, you paid your membership fees, you got reimbursement, etc. And really nothing far from the truth.
And basically, what would people be saying in that? What would they be talking about? What would they be asked? Would they have to get up on the stand? Anything like that?
Yeah, they would have to get up on the stand, and that's the thing. We need people to testify, and so the prosecutor may be asking them if they've ever purchased cannabis at POTUS Club. And they may be asking him if they were aware that it was a reimbursement or if they thought it was a sale. They may be asking them if they filled out membership forms, things of that nature. All of the things that basically our members did, and they are aware of. Yeah. It's just like I said before, we're not trying to hide anything.
Yeah. I'm with you, man. I'm with you 100% and hope that you don't get in trouble. I argued earlier online, and this is something that I've talked about for years now, is that this type of situation, it's hugely ballsy for someone to put themselves in. So I give you credit for that. I'm worried that a jury or people would not consider it reimbursement and that they will flat out consider it a sale. The way that you've explained it to me is another way that we should be putting regulation into place. But is that regulation already in place? Are they going to agree with you? I'm fighting for you. I have to look at it from a standpoint of not just being someone who wants to reform cannabis further, a proponent of cannabis, but also to analyze what's happened in the past and what could possibly happen in the future. So I wish you guys the best of luck with that situation. I know it's going to be a huge fight coming here, not just with the trial on Monday, but with yours. Is yours and Norman's separately, Norman Hartman? Separate, I mean?
Yeah, it's actually Matt Pinchkowski. Norm actually didn't get charged. That's just the luck that he has.
I didn't know that.
It's me and Matt Pinchkowski. We were both charged with distribution. They charged me twice, obviously. One with March 11th and one with the March 18th.
That's good.
But look, I would have never put myself in this position if I didn't feel confident that I was able to defend myself. Obviously we've got Rob Coy working on the case diligently. He's quite capable of explaining our case to the jury.
I'm definitely very familiar with Rob Corey. He defended me with my felony, basically kept me out of prison, and then also we may possibly sue the Med here very soon if they don't respond back to my. I applied for a med badge, and my felony is no longer a felony in the state of Colorado. In fact, it flipped to a misdemeanor 3 months after I pled guilty. So we're trying to see if I get my badge. So I'm fully willing to ride with Rob towards the med and sue them too to make sure that they follow their own rules with that also. So people can go online to Facebook.
Well, yeah, just a
Go ahead.
Just a couple other analogies real quick is, there are no exit bags at the liquor store. I don't know anybody, Habib or anybody else working down at the convenience store that's slinging beer that has a badge. So, there are no byproduct tracking of hops or tags for your hops plants in the brewing industry. So there are a lot of fundamental changes that need to be made.
Oh, I agree with you. And number one, it's dumb to have the exit bags. Two, the amount of waste that it creates is just insane, absolutely insane. I saw someone post online earlier about they were walking down the street to work, and they found an exit bag that they thought had some cannabis in it sitting on top of an oil slick pad just on the side of the road. Colorado problems, just things we have to deal with here.
Exactly.
So, okay, well, Chris, I will.
But yeah, anybody that wants to come down and watch the proceedings, they're more than welcome to. It's 8 a.m. down at the Flanagan Building, downtown Denver, basically Colfax and Broadway over there. But yeah, we'll be down there at 8 a.m. We'll be defending our case, and I'll clearly give you an update on the outcomes. So.
Yeah, we'd love to talk to you next week, and we'll keep in touch with you about all this good stuff. I know. Another thing is, too, I've seen you quite a bit in the past year because the roofing company I used to work for, we worked out in Aurora quite a bit. There were so many hailstorms that you guys have had to deal with out in Aurora. And I've honked my horn a few times in the old Silverado that I had, seeing you drive around in your blue van. And there I look back in my rear view, and you're, like, looking out the window with your head everywhere. Like, who's honking at me? But I'm sure you get that a lot.
Yeah, that's probably about right. Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, well, anything else that you'd like to drop? What's the best place that people can get
No, just basically when we get on the other side of this thing, the collective, Blue Mountains will be back into the cannabis bars. We'll be reimbursing, Blue Mountains cannabis in those clubs. And anybody interested in opening a club, just get in contact with us. We'll certainly accommodate. And then just be aware that Blue Mountains Cannabis will also be on dispensary shelves probably in January.
Awesome, man. Well, we'll keep in touch with you, find out how this is going, and find out how your other endeavors getting cannabis actually into the dispensaries, all that good stuff. You are fighting a good fight. It's just the worry in me sometimes takes over, so I try not to be a pessimist.
Everybody's a little pessimistic, but we'll get it done.
All right. Well, thanks, Chris Jetter from Blue Mountain and also POTUS Club. We appreciate you, buddy. Have yourself a great day.
All right. Thanks, Chip.
No problem.
Live.
Thanks again to Chris Jetter for joining us here on the John Doe Radio Show. You'll be able to listen to his entire interview if you didn't catch it live with us right now. Just go to John Doe Radio online, johndoerad.io, and it'll be up there for you also. Or youtube.com/John Doe Radio. And you can watch the video version of all this goodness. Let's get into some news. I've been talking to you for the past couple of weeks about a hemp car. Let me kind of throw this into the mix here. Let me pull this down because I got some audio for you. A couple weeks ago, we saw this hemp car. I explained it to you at the beginning of the show over at Green Labs. The car drew remarkably little attention in the legalized city of marijuana, and that's not exactly true. This news article is wrong with that. It drew quite a bit of attention over there. The news stopped by. Multiple news agencies stopped by, and it was kind of the center of attention once people started to figure out what the hell it was. Indeed, the chassis of this unique vehicle prototype was taken from a Miata, but the body is pure hemp whose fibers have been woven, put in mold, hardened with resin, and covered with paint. Its promoters call Bright Red the result of the greenest car in the world. The body is an agricultural product. The engine can run biobutanol, a fuel made of agricultural scraps that smells like a blend of garbage, wood chips, and alcohol. One version gets you high, the other version you can make a car out of. Talking about hemp, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show today, what the differences in hemp were and how confused some people are, even stoners. I talk to people on a regular basis that are not the most knowledgeable, I guess, when you come into the weed. I want to say, quote-unquote, custies. I'm sorry. It's true, though. Don't know the difference between marijuana and hemp. That's all right. We can educate you. Here's some audio, courtesy of the Denver Post.
Question is, how did I get started in making a car out of cannabis? The story really starts back in 1935 with a cannabis farmer by the name of Henry Ford. This is the way all cars were supposed to be built in the future, in Henry Ford's mind. And if it had happened, we wouldn't have the global crisis we have today. He would have influenced everything. We probably wouldn't be burning all of this stuff and put all these fossil fuels and sticking them up into the air. But the way he got people's attention was kind of cool. He always got the press. He was a real showman, but he would show people just how tough his cars were. And so he'd go around with a sledgehammer, right?
Dude's pounding on his car. Stop it. It's ridiculous. I mean, the dude is taking his fist and had a hammer on site and was smashing this mamma jamma.
Wouldn't leave a dent, just like this. He would fill up his tank on his car, not with gasoline, but with a second generation biofuel. And as a result, he created fuel that is considered a closed carbon loop fuel, which means when you burn it, it doesn't add any new CO2 into the atmosphere.
Clean.
It's possibly the greenest car in the world right now with that fuel, right?
Once again, big thanks to the Denver Post. Big thanks to the Denver Post for that story also. So it's going to be exciting what we can see be done with hemp here in the near future. Like I said at the beginning of the show, I think that it's going to be the next big, massive industry that emerges separate from the cannabis industry because the two just aren't the same. Illinois finally unrolling cannabis medical marijuana. Patients say they will drive long distances to buy their first legal weed. Neighbors worry about loitering and crime, and police plan extra patrols in towns where dispensaries will sell for the first time medical marijuana in Illinois. Public sentiments range from cautious to elated as Illinois prepares to join more than a dozen states that allow medical Vice clipping them all together right there. Medical marijuana sales. Not quite at recreational in Illinois. There is still no official start date in Illinois, but Joseph Wright, director of the state's pilot program, said Thursday that sales should begin within the next 2 weeks. Required ID cards are being made and mailed out to 3,200 approved patients this week, and lab testing of marijuana has begun. 5 retail shops statewide are fully licensed under a 4-year pilot program that began in 2014. So if you're fully against the situation that is going on in Ohio, and we'll talk more in Ohio in just a second here, but if you're against what's happening in Ohio, then how are you not railing on this situation? Which I'm sure you fought against this situation when it came up in Illinois. Talked about how Illinois had a bunk rule, but it's something. And Ohio's definitely a lot better than this situation that they're dealing with in Chicago. Think, 5 dispensaries throughout the entire state of Illinois. 5. Can you imagine if you're here in Colorado that we only had 5 dispensaries to operate out of? Number one, those people would be the richest motherfuckers in America in no time at all. And 2, it just wouldn't work. The access is null and void. Talk about people having to drive long distances. I mean, that shouldn't be the way that it happens in America. If supply and demand dictate what we face here in America when it comes to opening up a business, sales, distributorship, wholesale, whatever it is, then we should be looking at, like Chris was talking about, not even regulating like alcohol, but less than alcohol. Each store marks another, where am I at here? Each marks another step closer to patients getting a chance to legally buy marijuana after several delays, including lawsuits and a new Republican governor who has been lukewarm to the idea. Striving for professionalism, Illinois retailers have designed their shops like medical clinics in hopes of garnering support. Some shops have waiting rooms with touchscreen tablets and employees to discuss different marijuana strains one-on-one with patients. Andy Schnack, manager at Herbal Remedies Dispensary in Quincy, said it's not a head shop. There are no Bob Marley posters. They should have told that back in the day here in Colorado when our dispensaries and shops first started opening. Some of them were like walking into somebody's dorm room. I mean, you had the hanging beads over the door that you had to part the C to kind of get through. You had the Bob Marley poster on the side. You had maybe a lava lamp over in the corner. Some shit like that. And there was lots of people here in Colorado that said, that's not how we operate. But there were still shops out there that were like that. Now, I can't imagine that's going to be the case in Illinois, seeing how strict the situation is there and only having 5 dispensaries. I can't imagine one of those dispensaries being the stoner go-to spot with Bob Marley on and Fish and Grateful Dead posters and any of that other good stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with that. In Central Illinois, patient card holder Shemay Flaherty is saving money for when her caregiver will drive her to purchase her first legal marijuana. 43-year-old expects to pay around $380 an ounce, which is lower than the $400 an ounce that a lot of us are used to when it comes to the black market. Still, $380, definitely higher priced. Especially when you have only 5 shops that are distributing the cannabis. But market will dictate that. Some law enforcement and neighbors are hesitant. In the Chicago suburb of Mundelein, Police Chief Eric Gunther hopes his force of 54 sworn officers won't be overburdened when a dispensary opens in a local industrial park. Oh yeah, like it's going to take 54 fucking officers for you to control one retail spot. And if other states, I don't know, this is Illinois and Chicago, so who knows what's going to happen in that rowdy-ass city. But if precedent has been set across the nation when it comes to these dispensaries, especially like here in Colorado, where dispensaries have opened up, traditionally have been areas where they've kind of been in rundown areas. They're up and coming. Stores have been shut down. There's multiple spots that have empty shops. For instance, one of the nicer places, but still had a lot of empty shops, was South Broadway here in Colorado. It used to be called Antique Row. We kind of took that over, and it became a New Amsterdam type situation. Broadsterdam, if you will. But in many, many instances, these shops have opened up, and when studies are done, when reports come out about crime rates in the area, they've actually lowered the crime rates. Sheriffs in multiple municipalities talking about how the cameras and increased business and foot traffic and flow to the area has helped not only keep crime at bay, but also bring a rejuvenated shot in the arm to these areas, which is exciting and awesome. It's unfortunate that a lot of people don't want to admit that that's the case and that's what's happening. And sometimes, specifically like here in Colorado, we may see a massive influx, more than we really want at the time, driving up prices, not necessarily cannabis prices, but prices, the cost of living, all that good stuff. Traffic. I don't even wish driving on I-25 during rush hour here in Colorado, one of my worst enemies. It may not be the same as driving in LA or Boston or whatever it is, but it's our own mile-high hell. But we can deal with that. The officer says, this is all new to me, really, to law enforcement in Illinois. Yeah, it is new to you in Illinois, but it's not new to other people across the nation that have already dealt with it. Denver police, for example, why couldn't they sit down with Denver police and say, we're actually looking forward to the positive energy that this could produce in our area? No, and just like we talked about with Chris Jenner, there's just a mindset of the drug war still heavily with the police and with courts. More so in some areas when it comes to the court action than here in Colorado. Fortunately, we've separated drug charges. And for instance, like Chris Jenner explained, his charge is just a misdemeanor. Which I thought until he told me that these things were going to be felonies. So we've kind of changed, and we're starting to do a little bit better when it comes down to the courts not punching you directly in the face with this, but changing laws and changing rules. But it's still the police, and it's still the motions that they want to take with the prosecutors, and if they want to file civil asset forfeiture with you, they're going to do that. And it's good that people like Chris Jenner, very ballsy, but it's good that people like that are pushing these rules, because otherwise, more and more people down the line are going to have to be in a situation to where they don't have any recourse if their car's taken, if their building's taken, if their house is taken. It's unfortunate. Officer Gunther also says, I would have liked someone else to be the guinea pig. It's already happened. It's already gone through the guinea pig process in other places besides where you're at in Illinois. Don't think that just because you're there in Chicago and it's brand new to you, that this is not something that we've already worked out. Because we have. You just have to sit down and talk with the people who have been a part of it. It's frustrating to hear law enforcement just talk about how bad this is over and over and over again. How bad it is. It's the same as meth, it's the same as heroin. No, it's not. And your life's going to get a lot easier once you start admitting that it isn't. Another shop wants to locate across the street from a roller skating rink in Chicago's South Side. Its vocal foes carry signs reading, "We don't want it." Our neighborhood already is struggling, said Dedra Delaney, who objects to the proposed location of the shop, but not to a medical marijuana situation in general. We all agree it's just not good for the community. So they want it. They feel like people shouldn't be getting in trouble to it, that people should have access to medical marijuana, but at the same time, I don't want to look at it. That's fine, but I don't want to walk out of my door and look at your bullshit that you got going on. That's hypocritical, and it's ridiculous. It would be one thing if we were in a situation here in the United States where cannabis facilities caused more issues, and you did have to worry about it, but we're not. Our doors are open. Skip the paragraph here. A church a half block from the Quincy dispensary is more welcoming. Chuck Sackett, minister of Madison Park Christian Church, says his congregation doesn't pass judgment. Our doors are open to anyone who finds life more difficult than they can handle. Now, is he kind of talking out the side of his mouth there? Kind of saying something that if you're using drugs, if you're using marijuana and your life is difficult, so you think that you have to use marijuana, we're going to take you in. We can accept you. No thanks, buddy. I'm not gonna accept your sideways ass fucking comments. Good for him though. I mean, if that's really how he feels, whatever. It's not the worst that's out there. It's not the cops saying that, oh my God, this is gonna all fall apart. Retailers warn of possible shortages in the city. Possible shortages altogether in the first few days because of pent-up demand. They reassure customers who phone daily new products will continue to arrive. With only having 5 dispensaries in the entire state, they better be stacked to the brim with product. Even in Oregon, where there's a ton of dispensaries that opened up, they still ran out of product the first day. Within hours, some places had signs up that said, "We're out. Sorry, bruh. Come back tomorrow." One businessman wants more information about the 21,000 Illinois residents who started patient applications but didn't submit the paperwork. Is it that they haven't found a doctor, or they haven't paid the $100 application fee? Said Ben Kovler, CEO of Green Thumb Industries, who runs the Mundelein shop. He said such information would help the industry reach more patients. That's also because there's heavier restrictions in Illinois to be able to get your medical marijuana card. So it probably scared people off once they got into the process and started to see the rules and the hurdles that they would have to jump. Mike Murphy says his plan is to take the Amtrak to Springfield, then rent a car. How ridiculous is that? The dude's got to take the Amtrak and then go rent a freaking car to get access. He said he's desperate to treat headaches linked to concussions from high school football and get off prescription painkillers. It just takes over your life. I agree with you. If it weren't for weed sometimes, or overdosing on Excedrin, then I don't know if I'd be here with you today, because the migraines that I could get and the migraines that I see other people getting, you just want to go up to a 50-story building and jump right out of the window when you have them. It's such searing pain. And here's the thing. Opiates have made that pain worse in the past. It's increased the pain. They haven't attacked the neurons that they need to attack, neurological disorders that some people have. And studies that have come out have proven that have said cannabis can help attack those neurons a little bit better than opiates can. You're using a less harmful of substance, definitely using something that's less addictive or less problematic in the long run. And if anything, it may not be that miracle drug that completely takes away your pain, but it's like going from a 90-degree angle of sharpness of pain to switching that bitch open to almost 180 degrees. It takes that edge off. You don't want to jump out that window. You don't have that feeling. You may not feel great. You may still not be able to get up out of bed, but you're not dying. You don't feel like there's a hot poker going through the side of your head, a hot poker going through the middle of your eye. And people with extreme pain really shouldn't have to drive that far to get this taken care of. And I can't imagine what the type of situation that limits would put you in a state like that, having to take the Amtrak or a car or something. And that brings into play what Jetter talked about with us earlier, is that if you have somebody go buy that for you, which in Colorado you do, you can have your caregiver go buy cannabis for you and then bring it to that person and be reimbursed specifically for the cost. Not necessarily like that with rec, which is what we talked about earlier and what Chris Jetter is pushing to fight. Also, with MedCan, it is kind of like that. So I don't know if the rules are like that in Chicago, but still having to deal with that situation is a freaking pain in the ass. Getting well past the hour here on the John Doe Radio Show that we usually go, but that's all right. It's not like we have a time limit or anything. Thanks for hanging out with us on JDR Live. You can go to youtube.com/John Doe Radio and listen live to these Monday through Friday news podcasts with us. Hopefully we'll get Mike in here or on the phone here in the near future, talk with him about news stories, because he's kind of the one that brought up this Chris Jetter news story and the POTUS Club situation that's going on. Chris Jetter contacted him. He posted up something earlier about it, and actually Mike following quite a little bit more, or at least being a little bit more vocal about some news stuff here recently, which is exciting too, because it brings in another opinion to the mix here of the JDR family. So JDR not just being me. I'm not JDR. It's JDR is you. Is Bike, is Brambo, is Dread, is me. Is the monkey sitting over here in the corner, fast asleep, with her paws flying up in the air. Yes, Miss Molly has joined us again this afternoon. How she sleeps through me screaming into oblivion, I don't know. If I was her, I would be like, is this dude talking to me? Is he really talking to me? I can't tell if he's talking to me or not. Just goes to show that Molly is smarter than me, that I am not as smart as... Anyway, I try to be funny. It doesn't work. Ohio, heading to the finish line of marijuana legalization campaign, 2 statewide office holders are stressing the potential negative impact of Ohio's business climate. Secretary of State John Husted said in a meeting with business people around the state, he consistently hears the same story. We're already having trouble hiring young entry-level people because they can't pass a drug test. Marijuana going to make that problem worse. Chances are the people that are already using cannabis is legal. I don't know. Maybe legalization is going to make a big difference, but I'm talking about young people who are probably already using cannabis in your area, so not much is going to change. This is you just being a dickhead still and voicing your ridiculous opinion of how this should be legal and how other people should run their lives. You're misunderstood and misguided with how dangerous cannabis is, so you're going to go and say, I'm not going to hire you. Now, deep down, I feel a person should be able to hire whoever they want, fire whoever they want, as long as it doesn't violate a person's civil rights. Drinking alcohol, smoking cannabis is not part of your civil right. It's a choice you make, and if an employer doesn't want to have you on board, I fully believe that they can make that decision to not have you on board. But just being a flat-out dick to be a dick is being a dick. Attorney General Mike DeWine speaking recently to the Ohio Economic Development Association, offering the same message. He said anecdotally business leaders tell him about 4 in 10 people considered for entry-level jobs either fail or refuse to take drug tests. That can go into a whole nother story of where we're at in society and where those people are trying to escape to. And here's the thing, people in entry-level jobs, situations like this, are drug tested more than people who are not applying for entry-level jobs. Politicians, all that other stuff, big businessmen, they're not taking drug tests because they've, quote-unquote, already proven themselves in life. So you're going to come back and try to keep me down even more by drug testing me. And I can understand if someone's on meth or cocaine or heroin or something like that. That's an issue. But with marijuana, come on. Not to mention how long marijuana stays in your system. I mean, under a week, 14 days, you can get rid of meth. And it's sometimes within just a few days that meth leaves your system because your system says, I don't want this shit. Get this out of me. When it comes to cannabis, your system's like, okay, I can use this. I'm going to hold on to this for as long as I possibly can because it's good. Issue 3 proponents say, if Issue 3, a constitutional amendment to legalize marijuana for recreational medicinal use, passes on Tuesday, it would further hamstring Ohio employers from and hamper them from competition with other states. No, that's your decision that you're making to do that. It is 100% up to you to be able to allow these people inside your business. So don't come crying to me that because we've legalized marijuana, because we've released this clamp on making people's lives worse, that you're going to go and continue to make their lives worse and then complain, oh, woe is me. No, this is a choice that you are making to not hire these people or not have them on board. Some of them probably very good employees. Don't bullshit us. Don't try and talk out the side of your mouth. Just say what you feel. We don't want people smoking weed because we're ignorant. We don't want people smoking weed on my employee payroll because we're ignorant. Issue 3 proponents say, and others that are naysayers say they're bogged down by antiquated economic ideas and fail to acknowledge the value of thriving marijuana industry as shown in Colorado and Washington state, which is everything I've just said here. Responsible Ohio, the group backing for-profit pot plans, say 35,000 new jobs would be created and billions of dollars in marijuana sales would create a tax windfall for local governments. A report commissioned by Hamilton County prosecutor Joe Dieters, a legalization supporter, estimated pot growers would generate 5,863 direct and indirect jobs, refining and edibles production more than 3,393 jobs, medical dispensaries 1,000 jobs, and retail sales 24,564 jobs, a total of 35,000 jobs with a combined payroll of $1.6 billion a year. I have no clue how he's coming up with those numbers. I know here in the state of Colorado that we don't have more than 10,000 jobs. It's closer to somewhere between, it's closer to more 7,000 jobs. We have about 30,000 people that are licensed as employees here in the state of Colorado to be able to work, that have gone to the Marijuana Enforcement Division, gone through the steps, and have applied for their badge and gotten those. I think 25,000 of those came from Florida, but that's okay. No, seriously, that's what the med says, is that there's an insane amount of people from Florida that have come into this mix to get it. But so I'm not sure exactly where they're coming up with those numbers or how to necessarily compare those numbers with Colorado. It's basically going to depend on the amount of shops that are open, distributorship, all that good stuff, which, by the way, is not monopolized. It's just those 10 main facilities that grow and could be expanded farther down the line. Because here's the thing, I can't see, if those numbers are correct, I can't see 10 facilities being able to create the product for the demand that is going to be in place. So the law and the rule says that it can be revisited down the line, that if demand is not being met, quality is not being met, that those 10 main companies that are pushing cannabis out will be allowed to expand more. Still not the ideal situation that we're looking for, but take that situation out and it's a law that we should be passing. You should not be blinded by that monopoly with Ohio. Here's the deal also, that if we have recreational cannabis legalized across the nation, which could happen within 10 years, depending on who we get into the next administration, who is there to push this forward. Who knows? Obama could drop the mic on his last day and be like, no, it's a little bit different. It takes a congressional act, I think, for this to be put in place across the nation. But either way, it could happen. And who knows what we deal with. At that point in time, the state's laws will really become null and void. It's going to be a federal law type situation, and maybe the states will have room, depending on what federal law says. Maybe there would be exemptions that if you want to exempt out as a state, that if you want to have a vote, just like there is dry counties in some areas when it comes to alcohol. I know where my grandma lives in Arkansas. It's a dry county, and you just walk 5 blocks across the border and you can get it, and then the people 5 blocks the other way are not receiving the benefit. Either way, that situation could happen, and who knows where laws would go from there. It's rolling the dice again. So if we can move forward cannabis regulation, this is my final stance on the Ohio situation, is that it's a positive legislation that is being put forward, and it's positively, because of how well it's written, outside of some of the things that we hate about it. Counties have to open dispensaries. They can't just opt out. There are things in there that are going to push forward just having cannabis out in people's hands. Being able to legally have cannabis in your possession is going to help other states throughout the nation. I believe that if it's defeated in Ohio, that some other states are going to look at not the real reason why it was defeated, that the monopoly situation, when it comes down to it, is going to be probably the reason if it loses, that it loses. I'm afraid some other states are not going to look at that monopoly situation directly and say, okay, that's why it was farked up. We're not going to do the same thing. We might have some of the same rules. We're going to take Ohio's measure, Colorado's measure, and then just kind of take out this 10 company limit monopoly that's going on. I'm afraid that's not what's going to happen. It's going to scare off other states from moving forward. Same thing what happens with Cali is if Cali doesn't pass something here very, very soon, this next election, I'm not sure if people have given up on Cali or if that could be a situation where it harms us moving forward federally. I think we're kind of in a stalemate with a lot of places until Cali does move forward. We've done everything we can here in Colorado. Oregon's doing everything that they can. Hopefully Alaska can pull some awesomeness with their rules. And then hopefully Washington can somehow pull themselves up from the deep water that they're in. Finishing out this article. See if there's anything else in here. There's really nothing else in this article that needs to be mentioned. Also, by the way, just a reminder that if you vote yes on both question 2 and 3 in Ohio. Question 2 would basically eliminate monopolies from being put into the state constitution or being put on the ballot, that it would have to be okayed by the people, that yes, you could put this on because it includes a monopoly. If question 2 passes and 3 passes, legalization and medical marijuana doesn't pass. So if 2 goes through, 3 does not, because it's active from this from this ballot right now. It doesn't start the year after. It doesn't start 2 years after. It's right now. So I would suggest, and I support yes on 3 and no on 2, which sucks because 2 should be a yes. Even I'm getting confused. 2 should be a yes, because I personally, as a libertarian, and my beliefs, I don't believe that there should be that monopoly that's put forward. Now, if a state is going to make a rule that says that you can't do that, I agree with that wholeheartedly. But in this case, it would wipe out everything that you're trying to do. So be careful, Ohio, with that good times there. With that dang old Monsanto. All right. I think... I got a couple other stories. I might get to those tomorrow on Friday. We still got left NFL players voice support for medical marijuana at a Phoenix event. I've got connections to a few NFL players. I can't name names right now because I don't want to get you hugely excited, but we've looked into possibly getting interviews, which we've had a great time before. We've interviewed a couple former Broncos, Oregon Duck, who specifically went to Oregon just to be able to smoke weed and then wanted to go get on the Broncos because he wanted to smoke weed. And then there's still huge discussion that we can have, and it has been something that we've been fighting years and years here in Colorado. And it's the same with other states because this is a federal problem. Pot between a rock and a hard place. Feds reject Colorado's marijuana bank. Let's do that one, and then we'll go to the chat room, see if you guys have any questions for me, and then wind up today's episode of JDR News Daily. Thanks again for hanging out with us. Colorado's attempt to create a bank service for its marijuana industry has suffered another setback by the federal government and could be facing an impossible dilemma. The Federal Reserve, the guardian of the U.S. banking system, said in a court filing on yesterday, that today is Thursday, right? Jesus criminy. Said in a court filing Wednesday that it doesn't intend to accept a penny connected to the sale of pot because the drug remains illegal under federal law. The stance appears to mark a shift in the position of the federal government. Last year, the U.S. Treasury Department issued rules for how banks can accept pot money, which is, when I heard this story, I was like, what the fuck is going on? Who's actually in control here? Who's talking? Because just like the DEA has different offices in regions throughout the United States that one region may not follow what the rest of the DEA is doing until the head of the DEA comes down and lays a hammer on them. Seems like this is kind of the same situation. We're frustrated, said Andrew Friedman, director of marijuana coordination for Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper. So the state's even trying to get this worked out, which Hickenlooper has stated before that this is a problem that does need to be fixed. Because if we're trying to be legitimate here, we can't have cannabis businesses just operating for a cash-only type situation. Throwing down that $40,000 in the med office and them counting it out right there in the front, which is the way that I heard the whole situation went down when a dispensary went to go pay their fees. They didn't even take them to a back room to count the money. And then people were looking around like, can we do this somewhere else? Andrew Friedman says, we tried to do the most with the building blocks of instructions they sent us, meaning the feds, to set up the most rigorous solution, and we still are left with confusion. The filing came in a legal battle between the Federal Reserve and what would be Fourth Corner Credit Union, which was set up last year to serve Colorado's $700 million a year cannabis industry. The credit union can't open without clearance from the Fed Reserve, which said in its filing that transporting or transmitting funds known to have derived from the distribution of marijuana is illegal. Colorado chartered the Fourth Corner Credit Union after the Treasury Department issued its guidances last year on marijuana banking. Fourth Corner was designed to give the industry in Colorado a safe place to bank while paying steep fees to account for all the hoops set up by the Treasury Department. and many of these shops, probably all of them, would have been happy to get into that position. The credit union then needed permission from the Federal Reserve to access the national banking system and perform electronic transactions. The Fed Reserve said no dice. Credit union now wants a federal judge to step in and order the Reserve to change its mind, which is a hugely political stance and could, if we had enough direction from Congress and from President Obama, that we could possibly move forward with this. So hopefully we'll see that here in the near future. Federal government could hardly claim to consider weed illegal if its own banking system allows marijuana proceeds. I don't even know what that means. Next paragraph. Federal Reserve said in its latest filing the bankers won't be led away in handcuffs for taking marijuana money, but they don't have the right to put that money in the Federal Reserve System. By pushing for approval from the Fed, it was as if Colorado enacted a scheme to allow trade in endangered species or trade with North Korea, the filing says. Oh my God. They're comparing cannabis trade of funds through the federal money system as the same as if somebody was trying to support North Korea or pull in some rhinoceros horns or giraffe necks or hippo bellies. I mean, those are legit imports of illegal animals, right? Giraffe necks? I think that would be a huge thing because, they got big old necks and shit. I'm kidding. The mixed signals have sent the Colorado marijuana industry into a bind. Many shops still operate in cash, unable to accept credit cards or make other transactions. Colorado Cannabis Chamber of Commerce representative Tyler Henson says we're still Schedule 1 narcotic at the federal level. By the way, Bernie Sanders yesterday to a live crowd and then also a live feed to 300 colleges across the nation came out saying that he supports cannabis being removed from Schedule 1, which putting it in Schedule 2 puts us in a whole nother conundrum when it comes down to medical marijuana. Pharmacies being the only ones that are allowed to possibly touch that situation. We can provide every Band-Aid imaginable at the state level, but until the feds act on this, we're stuck. CEO of the still unopened credit union, Deidre O'Gorman, said she's more optimistic. A Federal Reserve account does not mean it is legitimizing an illegal industry. We'll be able to figure this out sooner rather than later, she says. But Conti Brown, the banking expert, is doubtful. I don't think the lawsuit is going to go anywhere, he said. The presiding judge in the case, U.S. District Judge R. Brooke Jackson in Denver, has given no indication when he'll decide whether to hear the complaint filed by Fourth Corner. Skibbity-bidoo. That's the news for today. If you got anything in the chat room that you'd like to chat about, let's see here. Thanks for broadcasting, yo. Big ups to Rob. Thank you for joining us, my good buddy. Thanks again, Yellowwanna Cake, for joining us again today. I think I even saw Dredd in the chat room. Who knows? Holly might be lurking in the back there, too. We need descheduled like alcohol and cancer sticks. Well, see, the thing is, descheduling it from Schedule 1, I don't know. That could, I don't know what kind of nest of bees we're opening up there by rescheduling it. I don't know. Recreational cannabis is a different story, but with med cannabis, we could be facing a upheaving of our entire system that we've created here if that does come down to it. I'm not saying it shouldn't because it doesn't, or I'm not saying that it shouldn't be rescheduled, because that does need to happen. We don't need to have it as one of the most harmful substances. It needs to be put somewhere. But I don't think Schedule 2 is the place for it either. Maybe not even Schedule 3. Maybe like Schedule 5. That's where it really needs to be. But the chances of that happening, possibly slim. If they actually looked at what cannabis does and the harm that it does, it would be a Schedule 5. Modern Homegrow in the chat saying 10 is not a monopoly, though. Technically, it is a monopoly or an oligopoly, omnitrocious, skimadibbly docious. I'm making up of random new words today. Just sucks. Usually I'm on top of that game. No, you're right, technically, but you're also technically kind of wrong because it is a legislative monopoly. It's 10 people, 10 companies, shell companies that are allowed investors to come in and monopolize the industry. Now, if you had enough money to be able to buy into the situation, you're allowed in, so, All right. Yellow on a cake saying, I like the soothing tone of your voice. Yeah, that's how I like it too. I listen back to the show and I'm like, man, you do have a sexy voice. No, I say, Jesus, man, how can we improve the dial to be able to get your voice to sound a little bit better? Neither here nor there. All right, big thanks to everybody for hanging out with us today on the John Doe Radio Show, JDR News Live. We will also be back into things with our good buddy Bike here very, very soon. We've got a brand new studio opening up. With some other pro-cannabis companies. I can't quite tell you who's going to be in the building with us at this point because I don't officially know. I would probably have my head chopped off if I did explain to you, but I'm excited about the people that I've heard that are going to be in this brand new spot with us downtown Denver. We'll have the rest of the crew back with you. Adam Dunn and the rest of the crew will be doing shows also. Sometimes it just feels kind of empty without being ribbed by Bike. Like, if Bike's not giving me shit, sometimes I'm kind of lost. Not necessarily today, because I had a bunch to talk about, and I'm super opinionated today, but I don't know. I guess I kind of like him. He's all right guy. He's pretty cool. USA Cannabis Company, if you need a consultant, you need to get regulated in a state, give them a holler. USACannabisconsulting.com. Tell them the John Doe Radio Show sent you. They'll take care of you. Good people, knowledgeable people. They can also build a situation out for you, like construction work. You need a front-end dispensary to be built out. You need a concentrate lab to be built out that's within the specs here in Colorado that you're supposed to have, bomb-proof, all that other stuff. I'm not exactly sure what you'd need, but I'm pretty sure that if an explosion happens in the room, it has to be somehow contained to that one room. So that was an interesting situation to talk with people about as that law was unfolding, and the fire department basically coming in and telling these extraction companies with closed loop that, dude, you just kind of built a bomb here. I can't imagine the fire department or an official coming in and looking at me with straight face and saying, you've built a bomb. Yikes. Make sure you holler at yourgraphics.com. Graphics, Grafix, Grafix.com. If you need a website built, you need something taken care of with that. Also, big shout out to our possible new sponsors here on the John Doe Radio. I'm courting them. I'm pretty positive at this point in time we've locked in Ajoya, which used to be Compassionate Pain Management. Great people over at CPN. Sean Gindy, who has supported this show for a long, long time. No questions asked, really, about support, which is awesome. Check them out. They're in Louisville. Ajoya is the brand new name of those guys, formerly CPM. The store just is amazing. You walk into it and it's crisp, clean, nice spot. It's like walking into a dope Apple store. I would assume, because I've never been into an Apple store. But it's just a beautiful spot. And weedbiz.net. Alright? It's alright. If you need any more JDR, go to John Doe Radio, johndoerad.io. And everything you need that is JDR is right there. Until we talk again tomorrow, I'm your JDR Daily News host, Tim. See ya.
Doe Radio Show is produced by Charlie Stash Entertainment. The John Doe Radio Show programming is not limited to, but includes information and humor on counterculture subjects that is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only. We specifically include responsible marijuana reform. Besides, listening to anyone but your mother is just plain stupid. We accept no responsibility for your actions or misrepresentations, and we do not fully endorse the use of illegal drugs. You are ultimately responsible for yourself.
Live.